At this point, it's not looking good for any of the Caribbean countries. And if you're wondering what am I talking about, let me jog your memory. So recently, the US went ahead and had 2 Caribbean countries added to their visa restriction. That's Antigua and Barbuda and Dominica. All because of the citizenship by investment that they do. Now, I did say in my previous video that very soon Grenada is going to be on that list. Now, apart from that, what nobody is saying too is that St. Lucia is highly affected by this. But we'll get to that shortly. But before we get into that, Antigua, why did your minister go on the news and say this?
Take a policy decision to block Antiguans and Barbudans from going to the United States. I can reassure the people of Antigua and Barbuda that will never happen.
No, sir, I like your confidence there, and you might have a point, but let me remind you, the US don't like to be played with. And they could be like, oh, you taking us for a fool? Okay, guess what? We're gonna ban everybody from those countries. The US is not to be played with. Now, a lot of people have a problem with the US because they're also doing the same thing. Now, President Trump just announced that he has something called a Trump Gold Card. And shout out to Guardian News for posting it. So it says here, President Trump showed off the gold card, which he described as a green card on steroids on Friday. The administration claimed that the gold card program will fast-track residency and citizenship for wealthy immigrants for 1 million or more. So a lot of people is like, well, okay, Trump is doing the same thing, so what's the problem with the other Caribbean countries doing the same thing? Now, y'all need to understand America likes having the monopoly. They love having the upper hand. And they don't like people doing the same thing. And if they're doing something, they want to be bigger and better at it. And of course, you guys know they're going to give the excuse of, well, people could just come into your country, invest, then they could get a passport and they could come to the US and whatnot. Which is basically like the same thing for America. The only thing is you just have to pay more money in America. Talk about being a hypocrite. But in other news, it's not looking good for the St. Lucians. And shout out to St. Lucian Patriot because I saw they posted this on their Facebook page. So it says here, a young St. Lucian student sat at the US Embassy in Bridgetown, Barbados yesterday, waiting to learn the outcome of her US visa. She applied for a student visa to attend school in New York in January, which is literally next month. Everything was already in place, conditional acceptance from the school, financing, she has already arranged accommodation. The only thing missing was that US visa. She was not the only St. Lucian waiting to be called up to the counter. Several other St. Lucians waited their decision, including a St. Lucian government minister who applied for a personal US visa. St. Lucians after St. Lucians who was called up to the counter got their decision denied, said loudly enough so any and everyone awaiting could hear. The minister protested that he was a government minister or met with a blunt response, we cannot issue you with a US visa at this time. St. Lucians who had previously held a US visa with no history of overstaying were denied. Students seeking nothing but more than the opportunity to further their education were denied. This is not coincidence, this is consequence. On December 16, 2025, the United States issued a clear and unequivocal statement warning that poorly regulated citizenship by investment programs pose a direct risk to US national security. That warning was not abstract. This was not academic. This was directed squarely at the countries that continue to sell citizenship without sufficient transparency, oversight, or accountability. Countries that treat passports as revenue tools rather than instruments of national sovereignty. What? Sovereign what? I can't even pronounce this word. And international trust. Is really bad, y'all. It's really bad. Not just Antigua and Dominica being affected by this, but St. Lucia and very soon some other nationalities is going to be affected by this. I'm telling y'all. The best I could say from Lucians and them, if all you know, I have an interview coming up this month. Try rescheduling it if possible. Or I don't know what to say. May God be with you, but it's really not looking good. So yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below.
Hi everyone, my name is Novo and welcome back to the channel. We talk about fairness, equality, and how big countries sometimes push around smaller ones. Today is a simple word we are looking at something that happened just last week on December 16, 2025. President Trump made new rules that made it harder for people from some Caribbean countries to get US visa. This hurts tiny England that sells good passports to rich people. I think this is not fair, and it shows how powerful country controls polar ones. Let's explain this step by step.
It is now extremely unlikely that my wife will be able to visit the United States anytime soon. For those that don't know me, my name is Chris. I'm an American. I've been married to my beautiful wife, Adenike, for the past year and a half. We have been waiting for her visa interview to come to the United States since May 2024, and with the new presidential travel ban, she currently has no path to come to the United States. As of the presidential proclamation yesterday, the U.S. will no longer issue immigrant visas to Nigerian spouses. There are a total of 35 countries, all listed below, affected by this ban. Previously, earlier travel bans had only focused on non-immigrant visas. These are things like student visas, business visas, and tourist visas. People petitioning for their spouses or children were exempt, and this is no longer the case. My wife has never met the majority of my relatives, and she has never set foot in my home country of the United States. I think a lot of Americans don't realize how difficult it actually is to come to the country legally. We have known each other for 5 years, and my wife has never been able to come to the United States. And now it is essentially impossible. I made a lot of videos explaining this process because I feel that it is important to call attention to the hundreds of thousands of people in my same situation waiting endlessly to be reunited with their spouse. I use these videos to draw attention to the real people caught in these immigration battles, and hope you will like, comment, and share this video to spread awareness.
Caribbean cousins, as we have all heard, 2 Caribbean countries are currently on the partial ban list for entering America. They call it national security reasons. Allegedly. The suspensions of all U.S. visas for nationals of Antigua and Bermudas and Dominicas will take place on January 1st, 2026. The primary reasons is because of Citizen by Investment Program. So you telling me, allegedly, this America seems to be what? Threatened by these 2 Caribbean countries who are what? Becoming very independent, whose growth and development are rising quickly, and what? Are no longer, seemingly no longer depending on America. As one African, one prime minister that paid off their debt in full, stated, allegedly, build it and they will come. Antigans, Dominicans, build your country and America will come. So no matter what they say, the independence of the Caribbean nation will effectively take place very soon.
So recently, as at mid-December 2025, the United States announced a new set of travel and visa restrictions that include Nigerian nationals. This measure will take effect on January 1st, 2026 and form a part of a broader U.S. policy shift on immigration and national security. So, this policy doesn't come from the Congress. It is a presidential proclamation signed by U.S. President Donald Trump, expanding a travel ban framework that was already in place early in 2025. So, what exactly was announced? Nigeria is included among several countries facing what is officially called a partial travel restriction. In practical terms, entry to the US will be suspended for Nigerians applying for most common visas, including B1 visa, which is business visa, B2 tourist visas, F student visas, M vocational training visas, J exchange visitors visas, and immigrant visas as well under part of this announcement. These categories represent the bulk of routine travel. All that is suspended. So the question next is, who is actually affected in detail and who is not affected? Of course, like mentioned, affected are Nigerian citizens outside the US who apply for new visas in those categories after the ban takes place. So most students planning to begin studies in the US under the F or M visas will be denied. So, not affected, and this is a part we will love to pay attention. Nigerians already in the United States with valid visas will not have this automatically cancelled because of this ban. Listen to this part. Some special categories such as diplomats, certain official delegations, and people with national interest waivers may be exempt. Just to emphasize that people with valid visas before January 1st, 2026 won't have them automatically revoked, but they might face extra scrutiny when traveling. So, back to the diplomats. The Nigerian government is not affected by this visa restriction in any meaningful way, although this is subject to the consular's discretion. But let's assume everything being equal. Senior officials, diplomats, and people with diplomatic passports are largely exempt. And here is the part many people will not want to say out loud. Most children of politicians do not travel on ordinary Nigerian passports. They travel on diplomatic or official passport or through special waivers and privileges. So, while the ordinary Nigerian is told you cannot travel, you cannot study, you can't do businesses, you can't even attend conferences, politicians and their children are not affected by these restrictions. The next question is, why did the US do this? I know one narrative that dominates the internet space, but the US has said several reasons for this policy change. Number one is national security concerns. So the White House statement frames this policy as protecting the United States from nationals who may pose security or public safety threats. Number two is screening and vetting issues. According to the US government's fact sheet, Nigeria and other countries are cited for challenges in sharing reliable background information and documentation with the United States authorities. And the third one is visa overstay rates and documentation concerns. So all these factors are mentioned as part of the criteria the US uses to assess risk. The US government frames this decision as about scrutiny, visa system integrity, and better information sharing. This is a developing story, yes. The situation is still unfolding because the policy is set to start January 1st, 2026. So more details and administrative guidance are expected between now and then. And don't forget, this was a presidential proclamation, meaning that the US courts and legal challenges often rise to respond to travel bans. So legal development could change enforcement. And the third one could be that diplomatic engagement between US and Nigerian government. This can also lead to reversal, hoping they have good understanding. So in practice, this means travel bans for academic programs, business engagement with the US may be delayed or denied for many Nigerian citizens unless exemptions apply. So in short, the US has expanded its travel ban framework to include partial restrictions on Nigerian nationals effective January 1st, 2026. And the US immigration rules doesn't change by emotions. They change by data. Nigeria needs reliable identity systems. They need to prove who is safe, who can be trusted. Without data, countries punish everyone. And that is why Nigerians must arise and demand better systems, because at the end of the day, restrictions like this only affect ordinary Nigerians, as diplomats are always exempted. It is a truth at a time. Take care and have a nice day.
In the end, security is important, but there are better ways, like working together with this England to make check stronger instead of just banding and hurting poor communities. We need to stand up for small countries and fair treatment for everyone. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Like and share this video and subscribe for more talks about justice in the world. Thanks for watching the video.